This is a continuation of the OpenClinica training. We'll be talking about missing, editing, and deleting data. Specifically, this section will cover what is the definition of a discrepancy note. In regards to missing data, we'll talk about entering a failed validation check or entering an annotation. In regards to editing data, we'll talk about entering a reason for making a change to the data and also deleting data. Here we're back at an open case report form. And the one thing I want to point out are these flags. These are discrepancy note flags. They indicate the status and type of discrepancy note. Now, a discrepancy note is used to record information about an item's values, including comments and recording and tracking queries. There will be more information on discrepancy notes on a separate video module dedicated to processing discrepancy notes. But at this time, I want you to be aware of the flag and the fact that they change color, and the color of the flag provides you information about the discrepancy note. You may also notice that people sometimes use the term discrepancy note and query interchangeably. Now let's talk about what the meaning of the discrepancy flags are. The blue flag indicates that no discrepancy note exists for this field. So in other words, nothing has been entered, there's no discrepancy, no annotation has been entered for this field. But now let's talk about the other discrepancy flags. This text comes directly from the OpenClinica user manual. And let's talk about the color of the flags now. Red indicates the initial status for a query or failed validation check. In other words, a validation check or discrepancy note or query, whatever you want to call it, has been entered for that field, and that's the current status. Now, green indicates that the discrepancy note has been sent to the site or whoever is going to handle the discrepancy note, and they're going to add information to it to try to resolve it. And the green indicates that a resolution has been proposed. Now the next step is somebody like a data manager or a designee has to review that flag, or has to review that proposed resolution. If they think the proposed resolution is satisfactory, they'll indicate, okay, update the data. The site will then update the data, and the discrepancy will be closed. And there you'll see a black flag. In other words, the action for the failed validation check or query note has been approved, and now it's closed. However, if that proposed resolution is reviewed and the data manager feels, look, it needs more information or further follow-up, the data manager designee will set that flag to yellow, which provides the message to the data entry person who's involved with the resolution of the query that it needs more information. Now please note this text, because these flags can be confusing. Because when there is more than one discrepancy note associated with a case report form field or item, the most urgent status is shown in the summary presentations. Okay, so when there's more than one query for that field, the most urgent one, or the one with the highest priority, that flag will be seen, and the color of the flag will indicate the color of the discrepancy with the highest priority. We're back to our case report form, and now we're going to talk about missing data. and what happens when you have missing data and how it's handled by OpenClinica. Well, here we have our most of the data entered for this CRF form. I'll just enter hour here. But you'll notice that I left date of informed consent unentered. And you'll also notice that because of that asterisk, this is a required field. So let's see what happens when I try to save this. You get a nice red exclamation mark next to the field telling you that you've done something horribly wrong, and you also get an error message saying missing data in a required field. So let's talk now about the two types of missing data we can have. We can have the missing data that we actually will be able to get to and enter it later, and we'll have the missing data that we'll never have. So let's deal with the first example. We're going to click on the discrepancy flag, and there's the screen for entering discrepancy, and you can see the default values here, detailed missing data in a required field. That's true. It's a failed validation check and it's new. So for description, I'm just going to put in missing data. I will get it later. So I submit it, and it gives me a note message. The discrepancy note has been saved, but it won't be saved until you save the form. So look at now our flag is red, which means there's a discrepancy note or query that has to be dealt with. It's brand new. So let's save it. And it's saved. Now let's go back to that record and open it. We see the flag. Let's click on it to see what's going on. And there's a description of what's happening. A failed validation check. There's the ID for the validation check. The status is new, and it's missing data. I will get it later. And down here you have an audit trail that shows what's been happening with that event. Let's click it, and now let's do another one. This is another field here, and let me get rid of that value. And it's required, and I'm going to try to save it. Once again, I get a nice big red exclamation mark and an error message. So I'm going to click on this, but now I'll never get this data. I'll never know the hour that this occurred. So I'm going to go down here. Instead of clicking on a query, or I'm going to click on the annotation. And here I'm going to put missing data in required field. Data will never be available. Missing data not available. I'm sure you can come up with better entries into this than I have. But now let's submit this. Gives me the same message. And you'll notice the flag is white. That means this query will never have to be dealt with because it's an annotation. This discrepancy note, rather, will never have to be dealt with because it's an annotation. And now I'm going to save it. And there it is. Let's go back in it again. We have our red flag for a query that's still outstanding that has to be dealt with. And we have our white flag for a discrepancy note that results in an annotation that does not have to be dealt with. Now we're going to talk about correcting data in an eCRF form that has already been marked complete. In other words, all the data has been entered into the ECRF form, and the person entering the data has marked that form complete. But now we want to make a change to one of those fields. So let's go here. We can see the event is marked complete, so that means all CRFs have been complete. Let me move this down. I'm having a little trouble. There we go. Okay, let's go into the demographic form. And all the data is there. The form has been marked complete because we know the icon was green. So let's change hour in that field and save it. Now we get a message, an error message, that says if you've changed data after this CRF was marked complete. And you can see a red exclamation mark indicating the field. So what we need to do is click on the flag, and you can see the type of discrepancy note is the reason for change. And we can type in made error initially entering hour. We can submit. Alright, now you can see the flag has been changed from blue to no discrepancy note to, now let's save it. And it's saved. And let's go back and make sure our change was made. There it is, it was made. And I should point out that one of the options you have in OpenClinica is to turn off the reason for change discrepancy note that automatically, or that error message that comes up. Because sometimes most of these errors are transcription errors. And if there are a number of them, it gets a little redundant to keep entering transcription error. But I think it is good practice to leave it on, but check with your sponsor or client to see if they want that information captured.